Okay. And we're good to go. Chase, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing so great. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to pick your brain, both selfishly as well as for everybody listening to this, because I know that you're someone who has a lot of value to provide, and especially in a field that a lot of people struggle with. So before we get into your expertise of email marketing and all that good stuff, I would like to get to know the story behind the entrepreneur a little bit more. So like, where did you grow up? What were you into as a kid? And like, how in the world did you get to the world of email marketing?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, born and raised in Orange County, still live here with my wife, and we have a newborn, which I could talk about later.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of interesting things being a dad and a founder of a business in these times. But yeah, grew up in Orange County, California. I'm the oldest of four boys, and really, kind of a long story short, the way I got into what I do today is at the age of 13 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Ben, do you know what Crohn's disease is? You want me to explain it?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a decent idea because my friend's mother has it, but yeah, definitely share it for anybody who's listening to this.
And it's interesting. So most people don't know what it is unless they personally have it or they have a friend or family member that has it. So Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis are grouped under what is called IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease. There's about 1.4 million people in the US that are diagnosed with it. So again, 1.4 million people too many, but really small as a percentage of the US, right? We
Mhm.
have 300 million to 400 million people in the States, then that's less than 1%, right? So through being sick for about a year, from 13 to 14, I was pretty sick, like lost tons of weight, literally didn't see friends or family, didn't go to school, couldn't play sports. I went from playing four sports to not being able to even really get out of bed. So
Tough.
it was brutal. So after about a year being sick, I just really wanted to take on this responsibility as a 14-year-old. Like, how can I help other people, know about this disease? For me, I went a year of being sick because of lack of awareness of the disease. There was
Mhm.
no, and by the way, so I'm 27 now. This was 13 or 14 years ago. So it's evolved a lot today. But back then, like no one knew about it. So I kept getting misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, which led to obviously not the right treatment. So as a 14-year-old, I started raising awareness and fundraising for this disease. So from 14 to 16, raised tens of thousands of dollars, and impacted hundreds or thousands of people through the awareness and through the mentorship and guidance. And at 16, I became the youngest board member of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And today they do about $50 million in fundraising. So pretty substantial in terms of like where it's come and where it's evolved. Served a 6-year board term, so which took me kind of through high school and college. And
Yeah.
in college, I did more internships than anyone you can imagine, right? I played college soccer, I was in fraternity, I was in business clubs, and I did like 8 or 10 internships. The reason for that is I just love learning, and I helped my parents pay for my university. I
Mhm.
had to help pay for school. So Crohn's disease, learned guerrilla marketing. In college, had internships in marketing, did, SEO and organic marketing and email marketing and all these things. And I just really love email marketing in particular. I really like the fact that you could send email blasts to 5,000 people, 100,000 people, a million people in a way that feels very personal and one-to-one.
Mhm.
So, Ben, if I send you an email, I can leverage certain personalization. And if I get you to open it, I have your attention, right? Maybe you're distracted by external things off your screen, but within an email, it's just me and you, right? On social, nothing against social. There's ads, there's posts from your family members, there's posts from your friends.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other distractions on your screen. So I really like how emails are a lot more intimate in terms of if I can get you to open it, right? If I land in the inbox, if the subject line's good, if the content's good, I have your attention. So really long-winded, doing all these internships, doing all these things, figuring out that email is super powerful, and it's something that a lot of people have as a second thought and afterthought. I realized that there was an opportunity there.
That's awesome. I love that, man. Thank you so much for sharing that personal experience because I know that must have been a lot to go through, and obviously it brought with it a lot of experiences. So you said that you were raising tens of thousands of dollars at 14. How in the hell were you doing that?
Yeah, so I taught myself guerrilla marketing, and that's really been kind of at the core of my career through non-paid acquisition. So that was everything from like flyers to fundraisers through charity walks, right?
Yep.
So basically, at these charity walks, it wouldn't be uncommon for like the organization to raise like a couple $100,000. I was this young kid, right? And we were raising $20,000 for these walks every year. Family, friends, friends of friends, family of friends. People would come to this walk one time, and they'd have such a great time. Like it was such a feel good event that they would come back the second time, right? So it kind of was this thing of doing it right and having a formula of let's get 10 people to the first event. All 10 people loved it. Next year we had 20 people, right? And by the end of 6 years of doing this, we'd have hundreds of people that were quote unquote on our team that were helping fundraise and raise awareness. So again, it was a lot of like calling friends, it was sending emails, it was doing flyers, It was doing kind of these like free kind of hacky. It was doing tabling at my high school. It was doing tabling at my middle school, right? I have 3 younger brothers. I was making them tell their friends. So it was very guerrilla marketing, very word of mouth and referral based.
That's amazing, man. So you at 14 went through this very traumatic thing, like obviously the diagnosis of this, that's a lot to go through at a kid that age. So what was it in you that made you want to give back to that? Because usually a lot of people would go the other way. They'd be like, well, woe is me kind of thing. What was it different about you that made you want to try to solve a problem?
Yeah, so I don't specifically remember saying this, but both my parents said, so again, I'm the oldest of 4 boys. I said to my parents, I'm so glad it was me that got it versus any of my little brothers. So I kind of felt like this sense of like responsibility as like the oldest brother that like, hey, if anyone's going to have to go through it, it's me. And I want to lead by example and be a really great role model for my brothers. So
Okay.
I kind of just took the approach of like, hey, let's pretend that everything's okay, and let's do something for other people. And again, just being out, for a year, that was really hard for me. And like, I can imagine if this happened to my brothers or my friends or my cousins, right? So let's do what we can with the resources that we have to be able to make other people's lives hopefully a little bit better, because this thing sucks. Let's make it suck a little bit less.
Yeah, no, I love that mentality. That's what I try to take with anything that sucks is like, how can I make this suck a little bit less? So I definitely love that approach. So as you're doing all this like guerrilla marketing tactics and all that good stuff, at what point was it in an internship, or where did you actually find email marketing, and how did that relationship become?
Yeah, so this story is very raw and real. I'm not gonna like filter anything out, so apologies in advance. But after I graduated college, I had a job offer. Literally a week after I graduated, moved to Los Angeles. So that's about an hour and a half from where I live currently in Orange County. So I moved to LA, moved to the city of Hollywood. In and of itself, that was weird. And I went to work for this ed tech company, which basically the fancy way of saying we made products for students in high school and college. And what I did there is I built this platform that connected students on college campuses in the US to others in their classroom to make learning more collaborative. So we launched at the 50 largest kind of schools based on enrollment size. That was like Arizona State, Penn State, Florida State, right? Schools like that, tens of thousands, students. It could be 500 people to 1,000 people in a classroom, and obviously
Yeah.
only one professor. So that personalized learning was impossible. If you missed a class, if you showed up late, if something happened, you were not going to be caught up. So I wanted to connect students in college campuses to others to be able to share study notes, collaborate on study guides, and create in-person study groups. And really kind of where I found email was through figuring out that every single college directory had people's emails,
Okay.
right? So I was manually going and grabbing people's emails, right? So Ben, I pulled your email, I pulled my email, I pulled this person's email, and I just send you a personalized email saying, what's up, Ben? I started this drive at, insert school's name. We have 100 people on it that have all contributed content. It's free to join. I think you'd love to join. Basically, it's like this social network around college papers and college documents. So long-winded, the engineers are like, well, why are you doing this if this works manually? Why are you pulling it one by one? Why are you sending one by one emails?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't you automate this? I'm like, what do you mean? There's a way to automate this? Like, how does that work? So these engineers built this tool that essentially helped me aggregate and scrape data from these college directories. And again, that's kind of the raw part, right? People talk about scraping and data and all these things. This was before GDPR. This was before a lot of privacy acts. We were okay.
Yeah.
We were sending hundreds of thousands of emails. We were mass blitzing college Facebook groups. I figured out that every single college had a Facebook group. So I was building profiles of really attractive females at those schools and posting and joining these groups as them. So I ended up being like myself and had like a team of maybe 4 or 5 people. We had hundreds of burner phones. Like I had this operation,
Awesome.
and it wasn't to do any shady things. It was just to help people. So we
Yeah.
were acquiring tens of thousands of people a week for these platforms, just because students loved the fact that it was free. And as soon as they joined, you got to imagine they enrolled their whole fraternity. They enrolled their whole sports team. They enrolled their whole drama class, right? People just ate this up because no one was doing the same type of thing, connecting students in a way that was free. The only thing that you had to pay for, or the only way that you had to get admission, was you had to submit content yourself. That was the only catch. So, Ben, for you to get access to 1,000 documents at your school, you had to upload one document, right? You have a document set on your computer that you easily upload. So that's kind of how I fell in love with email, is just the fact that we were able to scale this platform in a way that was super personalized.
That's so cool. So did I hear that correctly? Would you say you were making profiles of like attractive girls and going into the groups?
Yes. Yes. And I had this tool at the time, which was called Mass Planner. It's like this bot. It's no longer around, but it would basically help me automate finding these groups. So it would pull up based off a string of queries or text. So I knew all the groups followed the class of, right? Class of 2020, class of 2021, class of 2022. So I would extract a group and I'd find every single Facebook group for colleges. And then I would automatically join. So this profile of Ashley would join these set of groups. This profile of Brooke would join these set of groups. And every single day, they would automatically post, hey, if you haven't checked out the school drive, make sure you check it out. And dude, the difference between an attractive female posting versus me posting was the difference of dozens and even hundreds of likes and comments, right? If I posted, everyone's like, who's this guy? Like, no one cares about this Chase dude. But if an attractive female is like, hey, I just uploaded my econ study guide, all the guys are like, oh my God, that's so cool. I'd love to meet up in the library. And it's like, well, she never met up with anyone in the library, of course, but people signed up. So it was a little bit kind of spammy, clickbaity. But once people got in and once people used it, man, like we got so many qualitative and I guess quantitative feedback of like, this changed my game. This helped me get through college. I worked full time at a job. This allowed me to get all the notes I needed for my business class. Or, hey, I had a family emergency, so I missed 2 weeks. This allowed me to stay up to date. So again, that's how we rationalize it, right? Is the fact that we were helping people, and we really were.
Yeah.
So we got a little creative.
I'm seeing a theme here already that you find creative solutions to make it happen. So how did you even come to the idea of seeing the difference between like you in a group versus the attractive fake girl?
Well, it started off just being genuine. I just started joining groups myself, and it got to a point where I was in 1,000 college Facebook groups.
Oh.
That two things. One, I could never use my Facebook personally again, right? It was destroyed. All my newsfeed was all these colleges posts I didn't even care about, right? I recently graduated college. I wasn't in any of these schools. I didn't know any of these people. And then two, as I got to a point of being in 1,000 groups, as I tried joining new groups, none of the admins wanted to let me in. They're like, well, why is this guy in 1,000 Facebook groups? He must be a spammer.
Yeah.
So that was one reason, or I guess one and two reasons. And then two is like, as I was posting these things in the beginning, people were like, oh, this is really interesting. But then as I started having friends that went to these schools or siblings that went to these schools and they were posting and they were female, I'm like, well, why do I have 10 likes and they have 50 likes? Why do I have 6 comments and they have 40 comments, right? So it's kind of just this thing of like getting people in my network involved. And as kind of the early adopters got involved, I just noticed the trend of these females really liking us and men listening, right? Females got along with the females, where the females that saw it were like, oh, this is cool. This isn't threatening. Mm-hmm. Guys are like, well, this chick's hot. Like, I'm going to do what she says, right? It's almost like this psychology thing.
That's awesome. I love that. And there's so much psychology going in behind marketing and social media and all that stuff. So I love that you connected the dots there and found the right solution. So as you're working at this job and you're figuring out the solutions through getting these hot girls, getting all these people in the thing, at what point how long were you at that job and when did you start going out on your own?
So I spent a year there, and then the team was so happy with what I did is they had friends that had a small YouTube competitor. The company was called Bit Kitchen, which was basically a video product lab. Their claim to fame was this product called VidMe, which had tens of millions of users. They were having like this great new head of marketing, head of growth role, and they just had raised like $6 or $8 million. There was like 5 or 6 people on the team. So the guys at the company I was at were like, dude, you did such a great job here. Pretty much built the team, you built the product, like we're at a place like where we can maintain it. Sure, we'd love you to stay, but this job's going to pay you so much money. There's a chance to get all these other things that it just seemed like for my career growth, my trajectory, that was a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. So I actually only ended up spending like 6 to 8 months at that new job I took because I ended up moving back to Orange County and was commuting every day to LA. And I just spent, an hour and a half to 2 hours each way, either driving or on a train. After like 8 months of doing it, I was just so drained and burnt out that literally my life Monday through Friday was just commuting and work. And then on the weekends, right, like all I wanted to do was catch up on sleep. Mm-hmm. So I just felt like for my sanity and my health, it wasn't a great move. And I didn't want to be in LA long term. So after that, I connected with another entrepreneur, and we kind of partnered up to build this email travel series called The Discoverer. Mm-hmm. And we took this travel series from 0 to 500,000 subscribers in 10 months, all pretty much through non-paid acquisition. So yeah, it was through those two things. And I had like a side agency while I was working the full-time job. I also bought a dating site called Bernie Singles, which went viral. Nice. Kind of small part-time thing. The very first time I actually went full-time on one of my own concepts and ideas was this travel series.
That's amazing, man. Okay. So then how did you, I guess someone who's doing so many different things like you are, like, how do you decide where to put your mental bandwidth? Because obviously you only have so much. So what was your criteria for a decision that you would go after, or one that you would say, I don't have the time for that?
Yeah, dude, I think throughout my career and throughout most people's careers, like it's definitely ebbed and flowed from like doing one thing, right? Doing it really, really well, and then getting shiny object syndrome and then wanting to do everything and thinking you can do it well, but that's obviously naive, right? The more things you take on, inherently the less time, and therefore, I wouldn't say the less success, but the less effort each one gets. So I think early in my career, I made the move of just focusing on one thing, right? I was all in on this ed tech platform. Spent a year there, did really, really great. As I was moving to this next company, I had a lot more confidence. I was like, I probably could keep this ed tech company as a client, right? So I did some part-time work with them. I had this full-time job with these people. And then I started stockpiling things, right? More people were like, oh, I love what you did over here. Let's work together. And I just got kind of a little overwhelmed and a little ahead of myself and just took on a bunch of things. And I think a lot of things I didn't do as well as I could. I didn't do my best. So over the years, I've actually kind of cut back where kind of fast forwarding to like this, having my wife and kind of this baby, any projects that were kind of making me a little bit of money or, weren't doing as great as others, I just sold my equity in. So I had this CBD business for dogs, completely got out of that. That was really cool, great experience, but it wasn't making me a lot of money and I wasn't happy. So I think for me, it's kind of like a gut feeling and also like a quantitative thing. Like, is this driving me a return? Am I making money and am I enjoying it, right? Those are the two criteria. Obviously, for different people, there's different level of incomes that they want to make, right? Some person might be happy making $100 a month. Other people might only be happy if it's making tens of thousands a month or hundreds of thousands, right? So I
Yeah.
think everyone has its own kind of method of rating that. So for me right now, I'm pretty much doing my agency more or less all in, and I have a side thing, a newsletter, which kind of feeds the agency. So they're congruent. So now I'm trying to do more things that are congruent to each other because there's synergy, right? On
Yeah.
this agency, there's 20 people that work for me on my email team, and there's another 20 people that work for us on our paid social team. And I've realized that we have a lot of these resources available, right? I've got copywriters, I've got designers, I've got developers. And these people now help me build things that I'm working on outside of it that help feed the agency. So I think that's another point, right? Is if you're doing a bunch of different things that are unrelated and there's no correlation, there's too much mindset change and mind shift change that it's really hard to go from doing, this project that's about A to a completely different project that's about B. Just switching, you lose context, and it takes time, right?
Yeah, no, that I find that I've come to that conclusion more and more. I think the better that you get at that, the more streamlined everything becomes, and the easier it becomes. There's a lot less stress involved. So I definitely want to talk about your agency in a moment. So we'll put a pin in that because after hearing all that, I got some questions that were a little
Yeah.
bit outside of that. So when you first started everything, you had to do everything. Like you had to be the copywriter, you had to do every aspect of what you were doing. How did you teach yourself all of those skills?
So I actually started through a course. I just took a course and learned like the basics, right? I learned I learned the principles and the basics of email, right? And then really like that kind of felt like school, right? That was theory based. A lot of it was applicable, but you don't know until you know, right? I
Mhm.
felt like the real learning actually came when I took on clients and figured out that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, right? So I really learned by doing and learned by failing. And I'm truthfully really embarrassed by the work that I was doing, 3 years ago, right? The work compared to today versus then, oh my God, dude, I was drawing stick figures back then, more or less, on these emails.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
today, I've got a team that's making these masterpieces. But if I didn't dive in and do it right, I wouldn't get to where I was today. So I think the biggest thing was just to start. And I also think too, like being radically transparent up front, super important. So with a lot of these first clients, it was like, hey, I took a course. I'm really smart at this. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I kind of know what I'm doing there, but we'll see. So I was just really transparent with the first few clients, and more or less like they were getting a smoking deal, right? Like they were paying me like a few $100 a month, right? So for them, there was really no harm, no foul, nothing really to lose. And for me, there was everything to gain.
Yep.
So I think based off what I was charging, based off the expectations I set, I probably met the expectations. I definitely didn't exceed them like we do today. So I did copy. Was it great? No, not really. I did design. Was it great? No, not really. But what I was really good at was making clients money. And
Okay.
that's really what allowed me to get away with being mediocre on design and copy, is the fact that I knew which levers to pull that would help a company be able to drive engagement and revenue from emails.
And where did you acquire that expertise from?
I think just a lot of like, internships and understanding, people's psychology and understanding business model and understanding how, the profit margins plan. So I think just like having a general business sense of like, what levers move the needle, maybe you make the product more money than you wanted to, and then you're going to have a discount solution, right? So if you normally want to offer a product at $10, maybe you offer it at $15, knowing that you're going to be offering 10 or 20% discounts, right? So I just knew all these different psychological things and pricing things and margin things that I knew which levers we could pull, right? Hey, this inventory is not selling. Why don't we do on the specific item? Why don't we do like a BOGO, right? Why don't we do a buy one, get one free? So I just had a really deep understanding of like what things move the needle.
Okay.
And again, a lot of things that I knew moved the needle that we tested never worked, and things I never thought would work worked, right? So I think that was the biggest thing, is that like I was never afraid to test and try and to fail. And again, through all the failures, that's where the learning is, right?
Yeah. So after hearing that, I know you learned through trial by fire and getting in there and doing it. And I think I'm a huge advocate of that. And I think doing it in the way that you did, framing it from a very real organic place, is the best way to do it. But a lot of people are scared of that, and they are looking for a little more information before they even start doing that. So does anything pop to your mind about like books, resources, courses, or anything that you really recommend to get people who are just starting out?
Again, like for me, I started out working for other people. So while I wasn't necessarily doing e-commerce, which is kind of the service that I was offering as a freelancer and got my first clients in,
Yeah.
I was doing other aspects of email. I was doing cold email, right? So getting people to open emails that are completely cold.
Yeah.
That skill set in of itself is super challenging, right? We were getting like 50 to 60% open rates on cold emails, right? And this is on millions and tens of millions of sends. This wasn't like, so having like that background and that capability of like what levers move the needle and like who's the from name, right? Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it a company name, right? Like how does that impact it? What inbox do you land in, right? The primary versus promotions versus spam, that has an impact on open rate. The subject line and the preview text. So if you look at your inbox, right, you have the from name, the subject line, and then like the preview or the pre-header text. And those three things are the things that get your emails open other than where you land. So all of these psychological things were things I learned in the past. So I basically learned through trying, and also from other people that have done it, right? So I basically had like an internships and jobs where I learned the fundamentals. So that in a sense also was trial by fire, but that was more trial through expertise, right? Someone was mentoring me and working for me. So again, like I do believe that there's value in your first or second job out the gates, like learning from someone that's done what you want to do and someone that's really great. And then from there, maybe if you pivot from doing what I did in terms of cold email and community building into e-commerce, it's more lateral, right? It's like a lateral movement versus like this huge leap or kind of bound. So I think that's what I think about. It's like find someone that can teach you,
Yeah.
and that's the best way to learn.
Okay. I like that a lot. So now let's move towards the agency and the recent merger. Can you walk me through the rationale behind why you did that? And then what does that change for your day-to-day business life now?
Yeah, so I started this email agency 2 years ago, and I think this is also another really important piece. Is since day one, we've been very specific and niche on email marketing for e-commerce, right? So it's not just email marketing, which again, email marketing in of itself is niche, right? A lot of agencies offer paid social, paid search, influencers, SEO, email, you name it. And I had two agencies in the past that had offered every service under the sun. And I realized that when we offered services and told prospects about what we did, they heard that by the fact that we offered everything, inherently we probably were good at nothing, right? It's the whole jack of all trades, master of none. So with this new agency that again I started in June of 2018, I was very kind of strategic and very, very focused on just doing not only email marketing, but email marketing for e-commerce, not email for SaaS, not email for media. So I think for us, that's been the biggest point of differentiation and the biggest point of our success is being laser focused. This way, when I talk to people, oh, I do email marketing for e-com. Boom, it's tangible, right? People understand it. Even my friends and family had no idea what I did. So my mom was building incubators. She was telling our friends and family that I was working with babies, right? An incubator at the hospital, right? Oh, Chase does something with incubators and babies. I don't really know what he does. Or someone would be like, oh, Chase does SEO. It's like, I know SEO, but I don't offer it, right?
Yep.
So I only wanted to sell the service that I thought we were better than anyone else at. All of our case studies, all the content we create, all the conversations we have are geared around it. Anytime someone on social media asks, who's the best email marketer? They tag my name, right? 4 people tag my name. So that's a great source of leads, great source of like social proof, right? All right, sorry, long-winded. Started this email agency 2 years ago. We now have about 40 clients that work with us on a retainer basis, about 20 people on our team. And what we do on email side is completely dependent on top of the funnel. And what I mean by that is the work that we do is only as good as the leads that we get in, right? Because we're middle to bottom of the funnel. So we're very reliant on people that run paid traffic. Typically Facebook and Instagram is a great source, Google, Snapchat, right? All these other mechanisms. And I've been really great friends with Nick Shackelford, who's the agency that we kind of merged, got acquired by, for about 15 years. We've been really good personal friends. And he was the one that got me into e-commerce about 3 years ago. And we were just sharing each other a lot of business back and forth. We were collaborating a lot. We're like, dude, we have a lot of the same clients. We're doing a lot of the same things. We're trying to become pioneers in the same industry. Like, what does this look like if we work together? What does this look like? So in, I think, February, March, we officially became one entity, where instead of, again, trying to offer all these other services for them, they wanted to offer email, they wanted to offer content, and they didn't want to be okay at it. They wanted to be great at it. So through acquisition, through merging, we brought someone that's really good at email, who's us, someone that's really good at paid social, them, and we brought it into one agency, where now we can offer more services, but there's still that expertise, which is super important. So long-winded, that's kind of where we're at. I think the team size now is about 40 or so people across both teams. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of learnings.
For sure. So what's your exact role with the new merged agency? Like what is if you had a title, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think Nick technically might be like the CEO kind of by title. I might be kind of in like the CSO or the CMO role, kind of like a chief marketing officer, kind of chief strategy officer.
Awesome.
For me, kind of two things changed. One was having this baby, and two was this merge. That really was kind of the fire that allowed me to get out of the day-to-day and the weeds of the business. So up until, my daughter's about 3.5 months old. Up until about 4 or 5 months ago, I was selling clients on deals. I was, running the team. I was handling a lot of accounts, right? Obviously with the team and with partners. And now today, my whole thing is, doing interviews and podcasts like this. It's being really active on social media. It's kind of the hiring and the managing, and kind of setting the strategy of like, great, we're here today. Everyone else is focused on it today. Where are we going tomorrow, right? What's the next service we offer? Does it make sense for us to offer SMS, right? Clients are starting to ask about SMS a lot. And then ultimately the goal of the business is to get acquired. Like we came together to merge to kind of build this powerhouse, then sell to a really large agency in 2021, 2022. So how do I start getting with Nick on the radar of these agencies? How do we start having these conversations and kind of saying, hey, this is where we're at today. What are the levers that we need to pull to get, acquired by you guys in a few years? So it's really kind of focused on like, what's tomorrow look like, putting out fires, helping the hiring, making sure the culture is there. We have our whole team's remote. We're remote irrespective of everything that's happening in the world. How do we make sure that people feel supported, right? Whether that's sending them like a $25 Postmates gift card, right? Or that's sending them a care package, or that's hopping on a one-on-one and kind of asking them like, what are your goals? So a lot of it's like bigger picture focused on like the team and kind of clients, making sure everything's running smoothly.
That's awesome. And you actually just brought me to a new question there. So clearly everyone has to go this remote route. So now business leaders are having to take on that new challenge of helping their team completely remotely. So from what you've been doing since from running your business, what can you speak to that of like good things to do or tips that you'd provide to keeping that culture when there is no physical space?
Yeah, so for us, and this wasn't my idea, but every single Monday morning, we start our week off with a team-wide call. So every morning at 8:30 a.m. PST, we have a call where literally we hop on for 20, 30 minutes, and every single person on the team talks about what they're grateful for recently and what they're working on for the week, right? So, and we have people across the globe, right? I think a majority of our staff is here in the States. We've got 2 or 3 people in Canada. We've got someone in India. We've got a few people in the Philippines. And just hearing the skew of answers from like us here in the States that are very fortunate through like the people in the Philippines that don't have a lot, but are so thankful for everything that they do have. They'll say things like, hey, we've been out of power for the past week. Like we're so happy that like, we're able to be safe, or, hey, we're so fortunate that we get to put food on the table, right? Like certain things like this is a really big wake up call for the rest of the team that like, oh man, like we didn't drive as many sales in this campaign. It's like, okay, we'll drive more sales in the next one, but that's really not as important, like in the greater scheme of things.
Yeah.
So I think these weekly calls with the team are super crucial just to get so many different people's perspectives and outlooks on like the things that they're grateful for, right? Certain people are grateful for a friend that they got to catch up with because they haven't seen them because of, COVID and whatnot. So I think that's been really key, is just bringing everyone together and being able to hear what people are thankful for and what they're working on. And it's more or less focused on the person. It's obviously, right, everyone talks about things they're working on typically around business, but other things are like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to do that. And people on the team will like hold them accountable. It's like, hey, you said you're going to do a walk every single day. It's 6 p.m. Did you do that walk, right? So it's really cool. That's important. With every single one of our clients, we have either a weekly or biweekly call. And we work like in a pod system. So there's typically 4 people on a pod. We have an email marketer, an account manager, an email designer, and an email copywriter. So those 4 people typically are on the same calls week over week with the same clients, right? So they kind of get this interaction that we're having right now, right? And that's really important so people don't get lonely. People feel heard. We also do have like specific team calls, right? Where I'll hop on a call with the other, people that report to me, kind of just check in, like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How can we service you? I mentioned this a little bit before, but like sending people, small care packages, like, here's a bottle of wine and, here's some popcorn, like enjoy a movie night, right? Or here's a DoorDash gift card, why don't you order food for your next, meeting, right?
Mhm.
So things like that, we're obviously super active on Slack. And we're just checking in every single day with every single person, more or less.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is, making sure that people feel heard.
That's awesome. Keeping that channel of communication constantly flowing. That's
Yes.
awesome. So,
And I also hold something, sorry to cut you off. I also
yeah,
hold something which I call office hours. So I basically have a set time, a few days a week where at any given point in time, people can book me one-on-one. It's like a 15-minute call where they could talk about everything like, hey, really appreciate, you guys offering healthcare. Which healthcare package should I offer, right? Someone can just hop in and ask me a random question or hey, like, I messed up with this client. Like, how do you recommend I approach it? So I just have like these one-to-one kind of like more intimate office hours as well, where people can be more vulnerable in their questions and there's no such thing as a dumb question.
fair enough. And so when you started offering those, was their response pretty quick? Did people jump in and take advantage of that, or did it take some coaxing to get them in?
A bit of a mix. So with this merger, right, there's people on the paid social team that I've never actually met in person
Yeah.
or I never hired. So they'll kind of like book me and just say like, hey, I want to learn about like what you guys are doing, that we're working together. Or there's even people too now, like as our team is expanding and growing, like our head copywriter or head designer or head email marketer, or head account manager, they have a lot more autonomy now to do their own interviews and hire by themselves. Typically, I help them source candidates, I'll give them feedback. There's a lot of people too that are coming on that I've never actually met.
Mm.
Some people will look at just like, hey, I love you guys giving me the opportunity. I just love to pick your brain about like, how do I make myself a great employee on the team? Like, what are you guys looking for? So I think some of like the newer people that haven't met me are like, we're the first ones to book it. And then some of the other teams kind of ad hoc book me. So there's some weeks where, 5 people on the team will book me and I'll talk to 5 people. There's
Yeah.
other weeks where maybe it's only 1 or 2. So every week is so different.
Okay. Awesome. So to wrap up this up with the agency, what's the name of the merged entity?
Yeah, so we were Boundless Labs. They were Structured Social. We're now going to roll under just Structured, and we're going to have a new domain, just structured.agency. I kind of made a tweet about this the other day, which I was kind of, I don't know the right word. I was kind of surprised, but also not surprised by like how many people agreed with what I said. Basically, what I said is like we're that agency. And again, I'm not saying that this is a good thing. It's what's worked for us. Or for 2 years since we started, we have not updated our company website. We have focused all of our time and attention on our clients. That like, if you go onto our website, it looks like we're only a CBD brand. We do work with CBD and cannabis brands, but that's a small percentage of it. Most of our brands are traditional e-commerce, right? They're like hair care, skincare, fashion, apparel, watches, you name it. But most people will say like, oh, I didn't know you only work with CBD and cannabis. It's like, no, we don't. Like, here's why, right? Our website ranks for CBD terms, so we just
Yep.
left it. And with this new agency that we've kind of formed, we've been partners now for 5 or 6 months, and we bought the URL, and we don't even have a new website, right? Like
Yeah.
we are so busy and so focused on other priorities that like we've just neglected our own assets. So I don't know. It's kind of funny to think about. Not that I'm saying that you should do that, have a shitty website that's going to work, but like that's just been our case.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. So I'm assuming that just good news travels fast and happy clients refer you to more and more people. Is that typically how you're getting leads in?
Yeah, I think for us, there's a couple buckets. One, so I do a lot of like interviews, whether it's written or kind of podcast interviews like this.
Yep.
So podcasts definitely are a big source. Some podcasts net a lot of leads, other podcasts net a few leads, right? But it's really great content. Like I've even noticed too, like even if a podcast only nets 1 or 2 leads, just by me sharing with my network that I was on a specific podcast drives leads. So it's
Mhm.
kind of interesting, right? So podcast is one bucket. Two, to your point, there's 2 buckets of this. So within the client bucket, a lot of our clients are serial entrepreneurs. So they'll start one business, they'll have a lot of success, they'll build a second and third. And because we've proven ourselves on the first business,
Mhm.
we're pretty much grandfathered in to taking email on for their second and third business, right? So that's one. 2 is a client is so happy with our work that they'll tag us on social, right? So we've got a client called CrossNet, really dope brand. One of the founders, Chris, like gives us praise. It feels like on a quarterly basis, if not more, and that drives leads. Or other clients will just connect us or intro us to their friends and their family or so-and-so. So clients referring people is huge. Obviously, a lot of inherent trust. The others, I'm super active on Twitter and on social media.
Yep.
Twitter drives leads. Like I've been really impressed by the number of leads that Twitter has driven. I might have mentioned it briefly, but I also have a newsletter. I've got about 3,000 people on this newsletter, started a couple months ago. And just the fact that I'm in people's inboxes every single Monday, sharing content and thought leadership, that drives leads, right? So I wouldn't say there's one source where like all of our leads come from. We have a really great diversity. I think right now, I probably receive 1 to 2 inbound leads a day. We don't do any outbound. We don't do any paid media. Everything's organic, which does a couple of things, right? It allows you to more or less name your price, right? People don't really balk at your prices. That's one. Allows you to close deals quicker. I mean, for us right now, that's not the case because we have a wait list. Obviously, we're now having to extend deals longer. But we would hop on calls and it would be a 1-call close. Like, literally, people would be like, hey, what are your pricing? What are your services? Ben, this is our price. This is our service. And it's like, all right, like, can you send me a contract today? Like, so having the inbound and having the social proof has been wonderful for, our business. And I can't take credit. Like, it's really having a team that does great work. I mentioned you before, my copywriting is mediocre. My design's mediocre. Bringing on people that are experts and smarter and better has really been, where all the credit's deserved and earned.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't agree with the benefits of inbound leads more than anything. Like in my agency too, most people find me via YouTube, and you're exactly right. It's not selling at that point. It's literally just bang, bang, bang. Here we go. So I know you're very active on Twitter. I follow you there. You drop tons of knowledge nuggets. So what is your Twitter handle? And then you also mentioned your newsletter. How can they access that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, one last thing on the selling point. I just like we are with people in the beginning about like, hey, I don't know this or that. I believe in being super transparent. I actually respect people that say, oh, I don't know, or I don't think we're a good fit, more than I do people that are just trying to say, oh, I'm a perfect fit. We're going to crush it. So we have like a criteria and kind of like an ethos, for lack of a better word, in place where like we only take on clients that meet these criteria because it's a good fit for us. And therefore, if it's a good fit for us, it's a good fit for them. So I probably, of the 1 or 2 leads I get a day, they're all amazing brands, but I probably pass on a percentage of them for a number of reasons, right? Either their list is maybe a little too small, maybe they're not doing enough revenue. I'll literally tell people, don't invest $5,000 a month in me. Invest that here instead. And I think the fact that I'm so transparent with these people and I push away so much business, dude, when these people grow and they get to the place where I tell them they need to get to for us to be a good fit, and again, a good fit means 9 out of 10 times we're going to win for them. And that's really the goal. Is I'm trying to build mid-term to long-term partnerships. I don't want a brand to come in 1 month, waste $5,000 on us, be pissed, and us be pissed, right? Because it's a lot of work. But I think being really transparent is important. I'll have brands I talked to 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, that finally come to us now like, hey, I'm here. You've earned our loyalty. You've earned our trust because you were so honest. And I help people too. Like most people just don't give them the time of day. If people hop on a call with me and figure out they're not a great fit, I'll be like, hey, we scheduled a half hour, an hour for this call. Next 15 minutes, next 30 minutes are yours. Ask me anything you want. I'll answer anything you want, right? And people talk, people share, people feel really good. And that, again, obviously now I know that it drives leads, but it also comes from a place of being really authentic and helpful. So that's the last thing I wanted to say there. Yeah. On the Twitter side, so my handle is ecom, ECOM, and then Chase Dimond. There's no A in Diamond. It's just DIMOND. So ecom Chase Dimond, no A in Diamond. And then in my Twitter bio, you'll see a link for my newsletter. It's a free newsletter every single Monday. I send a free kind of helpful piece of content. What you should think about your welcome series, the 4 emails you should be doing, how you should think about segmentation, deliverability, etc.
That's awesome. Yeah. So anybody listening who wants access to that stuff, it'll be linked down below. So before I let you go here, I want to ask you a few questions, a little more on the email marketing side specifically for people that may be just getting into the world of email marketing. So, because I think a lot of people, it's been around for a long time, but it's so often overlooked. Could you speak to one, why that is? And then to extend on that, why you shouldn't be overlooking email?
Yeah, well, for one, I think like the media hype, email marketing is dead. I think most people buy in and believe it because, the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal have posted it. And it's like, oh, if they're saying it, therefore it must be true, right? So I think people kind of buy into this thing that it might be dead. And it's not sexy, right? Like people think, oh, these are customers I already have. These are people already on my list. Like, let's go spend more money on top of the funnel. And it's like, sure, like while you should be spending more money on top of the funnel, you actually have more money to funnel into it if you do email. It is such a profitable channel because, again, people that know you, people that are familiar with you, there's that trust. They've given you their email. I think email is really a channel for conversion. Most people opt into lists because they want discounts, because they want to see new product launches, because they want to get deals. On social, right, they're following you because they like your content. They're not necessarily there for deals. Again, social is a great platform, not knocking it by any means. We need it. But I think people, when they receive emails, are in the mindset of like, oh, like if I'm going to open this email, it's because I have an affinity towards a brand. So that's why I like it. And we're, at this point right now, we're probably doing like $5 to $10 million a month in email revenue. So it clearly works. And it's really easy to take a customer that's bought from you once, assuming the product quality and the experience is good, and convince them to sell again, or to buy again. It's easy to convince them to refer friends. And it's such a direct channel. Like there's studies out there that say brands want to communicate with subscribers via email because subscribers want to receive it via email, right? So I think for a lot of reasons, it's a profitable channel, and it's such a great channel that most people aren't tapping. So it gives us a lot of room as an agency, and also for our clients to drive results.
For sure. And I think that one point you touched on right there, which is so right too, and it's kind of an extension of that, is that you also control it too, to a lot greater degree than you do social. Cause like we live or die by the algorithm besides a paid perspective, right? So that stuff is so beyond our control. A lot of people are building a ton of real estate on somebody else's land, which is pretty scary. That's what another huge element that I love about email. So for someone just getting started out, say like they have a small brand, they're looking to get into the email marketing game. Is there any email like service providers that you recommend, or like where would you tell them to start?
Yeah, so two thoughts. One is on the provider side, and then one is on kind of like the content you should start with. For me personally, I think if you're serious about e-commerce and you're planning on scaling, Klaviyo, however you pronounce it, we have 40 of our clients all on their platform. It is a little bit more expensive than some of the others, but I do believe it's worth it. At the end of the day, a tool is a tool. It's only as good as kind of how you use it. So if you have expertise in MailChimp or some of these other, by all means, use those. Don't just use Klaviyo because I said it's great. I really like it, but I also am biased because I'm using it. But if you have familiarity or comfortability in other platforms, that's fine. And then two, like there's two different sides of the house within email. There's kind of campaigns, and then there's email automation / flows. And I guess there's also transactional emails. I'll kind of quickly explain each one.
Yeah, please.
A campaign is basically a one-time send to a group of people based off of an event that you think is important. Think about Black Friday, think about 4th of July, think about a product launch. These are all emails that you basically tell your list, hey, you should care about this. A flow or an automation email is someone on your list that triggers an email. They take an action and that triggers the email. So someone enters their email into a pop-up, that triggers a welcome series for non-buyers, right? Education around, hey, Ben, thanks for joining our list, right? Here's what you can expect, etc. The abandoned cart, right? Someone adds them into their cart, they're on your list, that fires an abandoned cart, right? So we've got the campaigns, think like a holiday launch or kind of like a promotion. The flow is think, abandoned carts or welcome series, etc. And then transactional emails. So those are the emails that typically come from like a Shopify. Those are like your order confirmation, your shipping confirmation. So I'll kind of quickly give a few examples for each of those to kind of give lights. Starting with the campaigns. This is how I think about campaigns. Send one campaign per week. And depending on what the open rate looks like, the click-through looks like, the unsubscribes, the market spam, the support tickets, if open rates on the campaigns are near kind of above 20% and the click-throughs look good and the market spam look low, the unsubscribes look low, try sending a second campaign per week. If that second campaign also looks good, try sending a third per week. At that third per week, if you get pushback, right, if the open rates have decreased, if the engagement's decreased, if the support ticket's saying, hey, Ben, you never told me you were going to send me 3 emails, like you're sending me way too many emails, like those increase, unsubscribes increase, then you're kind of equilibrium of sending 2 campaigns per week because you want to maximize revenue, but you want to minimize churn. And buckets of campaigns are, again, as mentioned, holiday emails, product launches, sales, education, social proof, right? All those types of things are things that you should be sending, any kind of current events. Those are all campaign kind of buckets. On the automation side, there's obviously loads more than this, but the 3 that I think you have to have as a beginner are the welcome series for non-buyers. So that's a way to greet people that are new to your list and educate them to ultimately be able to drive a conversion sale, right? You basically tell them who you guys are, why you guys are different, why you guys matter, and any kind of incentive that you guys gave in the pop-up, whether it's free shipping or 10% off, make sure that you include that in your welcome series. So that's the first. The second is the abandoned checkout. So when people make it to checkout, they obviously have some kind of intent and interest. So the abandoned checkout either people are already on your list, or B, you collect their email, right? When they're filling out their name, their address, their phone number, all those things, you collect their email. The reason that's so important is because people were so close to buying, but maybe they left because you didn't have free shipping. Maybe they left because they wanted to see if you were going to send an offer. Maybe they just got distracted, right? So the abandoned checkout is really important for driving revenue because it pushes people over the edge of consideration and it drives that conversion. And then the last one for the automation side is, kind of a simple post purchase, right? Thank you so much for your order. Here are some things that you need to know while it ships. Any kind of information that you can give post purchase is really important. And then on the transactional side, most of those are kind of configured by default within Shopify or whatever platform. So just make sure that those are turned on against things like order confirmation, shipping confirmation, and whatnot. So those are kind of the different buckets.
That's awesome, man. I was taking notes in my brain the entire time. That's amazing. So after just hearing that, clearly you have a wealth of knowledge, especially in this field. Have you ever done any courses or education programs, things like that?
So I did teach a course with Founder Magazine. For anyone that doesn't know Founder, they're like the Forbes, but for millennials.
Yep.
They've got a few million people on social. I taught a course with myself, Nick, who I mentioned before, Greta, who's an absolute badass, female entrepreneur. She started like 4, 5, 7-figure brands before she turned 30.
Wow.
And then 2 other gentlemen. Really about how like brands can leverage supply chain, how they can leverage influencers, how they can leverage email, paid acquisition to go from 6 to 7 figures. So if you want to check out that course, great. No pressure. If you buy it, I don't get anything from it, so all good either way.
And what's the name of that course?
It's called, I guess, Ecom Masters, or I'll send you the link after. But
Yeah, I'll include it in this in the description.
Cool. So I have that, and then again, I think just a free newsletter is really the best place to learn. I don't sell like consulting. I don't do any coaching. I don't do any of that. So I'm really focused right now on just providing value for people, A, because it helps, and B, because I know it's good for our business.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It all comes back to you as well. So I'll definitely be subscribing to that newsletter the second we hang up this call. So everybody else listening, do the same. So I want to shift right before I let you go, because I know you're a busy guy. I want to hear more about the baby.
Yeah, so definitely an interesting time. So we had our baby, her name is Shay. We had her in April.
Yep.
And definitely a weird time where when we first got pregnant with her, I can't remember when it was, but we thought, right, family, friends were all going to be at the hospital, right? This was going to be this big party, this big celebration. We were going to have, my grandparents, which would be my daughter's great grandparents, like everyone was going to be here. People would stay with us, right? Like we had all these crazy plans, and obviously, sometimes things don't go according to plan. So it's been hard and difficult in the aspect of like, my grandparents that are obviously, in their 80s can't come see her because they can't travel because of everything going on. So that's kind of a bummer. That being said, like it's really forced, us to be really active and mindful in her life. So for the first time ever, I actually have like work-life balance, which I didn't ever think was a word that would be in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Before this baby, I worked all day, all night, weekends. I love what I do, right? So it never felt like work, but I hustled. And just literally like from the second that we had her, something in my brain just shifted that like, man, like this work stuff's really cool, but like, I need to take a step back and really just enjoy, because everyone told me that like it just goes by so fast, and it really does. And I didn't want to like be sitting back a few years from now wishing like I wish I was more active. So I've kind of tailored my schedule where it's like between these hours you can contact me, and between these hours I'm offline. So, I only schedule calls between like 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. I'll never do it before. I'll never do it after. I don't care what brand you are. I don't care who you are. Like, phone goes off, typically from like 6 to 8.
Awesome.
When she goes to bed, I'll turn it back on. So it's been really challenging, but it's also been really rewarding seeing like this person, grow up every single day. And for me, like more than anything I do other than providing value and helping businesses and people learn is being an active, great dad. Right. And I think being home and with her and not being able to do anything else has forced us to do it. So it's also been cool, but it's tough. It's definitely tough as a business owner that wants to scale and really likes what he does, to kind of figure out like, how do you prioritize things? So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear, because with online business, like you can work feasibly 24 hours a day, like, and then you can always find an excuse to keep working. So that's awesome that you're actually putting the foot in the sand and creating that divide. That's amazing. So one thing you touched on earlier was about how the goal is to get your agency acquired. So in addition to that, what does your life look like if everything goes Chase's way in 2 years from now? Like what exactly does your life look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So if we get acquired, they typically have what's called an earnout period. So say we get acquired in 2 years, they typically have like a 2 or 3 earnout, which means you have to stay at the company. You have to make sure some of the numbers that you guys projected and agreed to get hit.
Yep.
Obviously, you get nice bonuses and nice cash if they do. So that's why you're incentivized. So if we get acquired in 2 years, that probably means the next 5 years are accounted for. 2 years building, 3 years staying. And then 5 years from now, I don't know, maybe early retirement, we'll see. No, I'll be too young to retire. So maybe do it again. Like, I really love what we do. I really do believe if I knew everything I knew now, we could have done this instead of in 2 years, we probably could have done this in 6 months, right? So I might challenge myself and try to do this again in a short amount of time, and then maybe sell it again to the agency that bought the last one. We'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah, just from speaking with you, I can tell that even when you're retired, you won't be retired. So I definitely look forward to following along with that path. So 2 more pieces, and then I'll let you go. First being is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given, and why was it so impactful?
I think for me, the biggest thing in terms of what I do now, in terms of like trying to create content, trying to drive leads for the business and everything that I'm doing, is before, like, I was heads down just learning, right? So I wanted to learn before I started telling things. Someone told me, like, you'll actually do more for yourself in your career. You'll actually do more for others if you give away your best tips. Don't keep it. Don't share things with people that worked 5 years ago that aren't going to work now.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the quote, but it basically was like, you'll do more for your career by building a community through the content that you create, through the followers and leaders that you build, than you will if you keep everything to yourself, right? So I'm really adamant on giving all my best stuff away for free, and it's done wonders. So I think that, like, mindset change of like, oh man, I know all these cool things, like, I really want to be selfish, to, hey, I know all these great things, I really want to be selfless.
Amazing. Love that perspective. So final question for you is, seeing as someone who runs a remote team and also hires remotely and whatnot, what is your process like, and what are you looking for in a candidate?
Yeah, man, in a different environment, if we had more time and if we had documented a lot of our processes earlier on versus now in retrospect having to build them, which is obviously, we kind of cuffed our hands with that. Well, first off, from the beginning, if you're early, if you're freelancer, if you're an agency that's early, document everything you do right now, right? Document it before it becomes too late. Like, I had to go back and document things that I already had passed off, a few times, right?
Okay.
Which allowed us to not scale as quickly. But I think one is having a really good onboarding documentation process that would allow us to start hiring more for just culture. Not that we, obviously right now culture is a huge part, but we're hiring for culture plus expertise. And culture is one thing, expertise is another. It's really hard to find someone that has both. And for us, a lot of the reasons that we have a wait list for clients is because we're obsessed with quality, and every person we have to bring in has to be perfect. I wish I could just hire people that had a great attitude and that wanted to learn and were eager to learn. But unfortunately, right now I have to hire more expensive people that are a good cultural fit and know their stuff, because we're still rebuilding our processes. We're still rebuilding things.
Yeah.
And we're all so busy because, like, dude, like, we're just flying by the seat of our pants, to be honest, right? Like, we're learning as we go. We're breaking things. So I wish I had a better answer, but we're basically hiring people that have expertise and also a good culture fit. But if I was to do this differently in the future, I want to hire more young people that are just so hungry to learn and so eager to learn and have a great attitude. That, to me, in the future would be the number one.
Perfect. Amazing. Amazing. I'm actually going to challenge you for one more question. What is something that you're extremely excited about within the next 6 months that's going to happen or that you're working towards?
I think the most exciting thing is, so within the email, it's been the same for 20, 30, however long.
Yeah.
The newest thing to hit email, which no one is really doing, at least I haven't seen it, and I'm one of the first people, at least in my circle, trying it and doing it, is what's called AMP. So basically, it's called accelerated mobile pages. If you think about landing pages where you can do like a scroll between product images, and if you can do like, if you click something and it drops down, and you could do all these things on a mobile page that are really engaging and interactive, that technology is available and becoming more readily available for email. So within the email, you could do all these similar and same things that you can on a landing page. That's something that I'm working on. And I actually have created a video. I don't remember where I posted it. And a lot of people were like, oh shit, I didn't know you could do this.
Yeah,
So to me, I'm really excited about being one of the very first people to launch it for my personal newsletter and for our clients, because there's this law that, I don't know if it's made up or it's true, but it's called the law of shitty click-throughs. Basically, as more people do something, the less engagement there becomes. So as the very first people to do email back in the day, right, they had the highest opens, the highest clicks. The very first people that are going to do this AMP stuff are going to have all the benefits, because people are going to be like, what is this? And some of the attribution of the clicks might just be because people are interested and intrigued. And others, it's going to be legitimate. So that's really what I'm excited about.
That's awesome. Yeah. So just another reason to subscribe to the newsletter. That's amazing, man. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close off today?
No, I really appreciate anyone that made it this far listening. Thanks for giving us your time and attention. And Ben, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, man. It was great chat with you.
All right, cheers.